Alright guys, TacticalRab again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far as the World Championship looms on the horizon. It's the Challengers World Championship, the big talking point of last night, the last chance qualifier in the Americas, going down yesterday on ZooMaa's the Stallions, making a serious run in the tournament. In the end though, it does come to a more premature conclusion than ZooMaa would have liked, but he does respond to the situation and say they will be back stronger at some point. What roster will they field when that is relevant? Again, some big changes I'm sure are to come. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, wanted to start here. This is Hastro, of course, founder of Envy, and well, he put out a tweet last night talking about all the things that have happened in this room, some of the boot camps that have been happening, all this type of stuff. Obviously at DreamHack Dallas, the Halo team played there. They had the Valorant team there as well. They won the match. They played on the main stage. And look, who knows about whether a Call of Duty return could be on the cards at some point. Clay here was in the replies. Hastro even says, working on landing Envy in a new office location. Might have to rethink things, and Clay gives his perspective on it as well. So Envy, expanding operations, getting back into business, what does that potentially look like? It's just been a big talking point over the last few weeks because obviously at DreamHack Dallas, Envy were there, Hastro was there, I ran into him at the Lamborghini booth, and they don't have a Call of Duty team as it stands. So this is Dallas Empire on the 1st of May. I've mentioned this tweet a couple of times, so this is all they've done. I mean, if you have a look at this, if you guys haven't been around a few years, you might well not remember, you know, Dallas Empire or even Envy being a brand. I mean, this is a tweet that Envy did back in 2021 on the E Classico, and famously, this was OpTic v FaZe before OpTic v FaZe. Nowadays, people say E Classico sometimes to refer to OpTic v FaZe, but I mean, really, the E Classico from a Call of Duty traditionalist perspective, people don't really call OpTic v FaZe the E Classico, but they did with this game. Envy OpTic was always a banger, and you know, some great images of their matchups over time, and it was even true, of course, when it was OpTic Chicago, Dallas Empire, famously, this seemingly at the Esports Stadium Arlington, back in Cold War Major 5, and obviously in other games as well. That's certainly been a key talking point. So, look, Dallas Empire didn't tweet for years because they disappeared off the face of the earth, of course, because OpTic acquired, well, okay, it was kind of the other way around, really. It was a merger, right? Envy, OpTic, they came together. Hastro's now got the branding back and seemingly also has access to Dallas Empire. So just with Hastro saying that he's going to expand the operations, there's lots of talk about whether Envy return to COD could be on the cards. Now, this is what I was talking about yesterday, or maybe the day before, whatever it was, I lost track of time, on this Esports World Cup thing, right? So I mentioned that a few teams are going to, probably all the teams, are going to have the option to send some of their fans to the World Cup. Now, this is also seemingly true for the flank as well. So, well, I'm not exactly sure how many winners there are going to be of this. I don't know if they specify, but I've heard that there are a number of tickets that the Esports World Cup are making available with free travel, free lodging, and all of that type of stuff for fans to go to the event. So, the plan is, and I don't know if this is like coming through FaZe or whatever exactly this is, you know, how this is transpiring, but if you want to go to the World Cup, you follow the flank, you've got a valid passport, which I mentioned the other day is important, and basically just reply why you should win. And just to keep in mind, yeah, you might want to enter this flank one, but I'm pretty sure there will be others like this coming shortly. The World Cup is 6-7 weeks away at this point, towards the end of July. The other teams are also getting given this opportunity, I think, by the World Cup to bring some of their super fans to the event because, you know, I guess at the end of the day, if the World Cup are also paying for all of this stuff for, you know, the players, the media, like whatever, whoever they want to bring to the events, then, you know, maybe throwing a few extra tickets for some fans that the teams want to bring isn't a bad idea either. So, you know, they've got the money to do it if they want to. So, yeah, the World Cup is going to cover tickets, travel and lodging during week 3. So the COD weekend for each winner. So, as I say, I'm not exactly sure how many winners there are going to be or how many tickets have been made available to these teams. There have been numerous numbers ranging from a handful to, well, a few dozen. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like. We shall see. But as I say, the big drama of yesterday, the last chance qualifier on the Challenger side, there was a bit of drama, people getting forfeited in the LCQ. But in the end, 3 teams survived until today, and none of those teams, unfortunately for ZooMaa, was the Stallions. But they put together, to be fair to them, a pretty commendable run. I think it's been great to see how ZooMaa's taken challenges and the interest in challenges to the next level in recent weeks, because I mean, honestly, the Challengers scene has not got the respect it's deserved by the Pro League in a number of different ways in recent years. And to be fair, it's not just a COD esports problem, but it is a problem. And you're hearing, I mean, like who said it recently, that there's no Simps anymore, there's no HyDras anymore in Challengers. Look, maybe there are, but there are multiple reasons why they wouldn't even play COD anymore, right? Given the current state of challenges and the current state of trying to make it up to the league. The interest, the viewership, the interest, let's say return on investment from an organization perspective to go into challenges just hasn't really existed now for some time. And whereas it used to back in the day with a more open system format, maybe we'll go back to that at some point. The age limit is also a big deal as well. But for guys like ZooMaa to go down there, bring in the Stallions roster, and make all the content out of it that has happened, but also really generate some interest on the Challenger side and in some of these players, has just been a great story for COD. Now, Stallions, they did get a couple of wins, but in the end, they went down, eliminated top 6. Of course, PaulX stepped in here. ZooMaa, well, it was Skyz who played the previous tournament on ZooMaa's team, and then that didn't go to plan, of course, in Dallas. Skyz then stepped away. I'm not 100% sure why, but, I understand. And yeah, so PaulX decided to come back in. He played with Swooty, with Symbols, and with Manny, because, Swooty's obviously a talented player. Him and Symbols had a bit of a, disagreement at times. Manny, though, quite possibly the standout player of the team, and that will be a question for ZooMaa to consider when it comes to roster change situations. But eventually they go down. There were some nice responses here, really. Manny gets involved, says they'll be back next year, and, I know that there's lots of new fans that this team and these players have gained as a result of this. Of course, PaulX had quite the season, right? Not Caesar Skyz, quite the season, starting on Rocker, being pretty bad, then he turned up at that major, kept his spots, then again the team started to struggle a little bit, they dropped him for Kenny, went to Warzone, he retired, he went to Warzone to play that for a bit, then he decided, you know what, screw this, I'm coming back, played for the Stallions for an event, and as he says, wanted to get these boys to champs so bad, but it is what it is. GG stuff when we played, and Swooty's also been a cool story of the year as well. He's a character, to say the very least, and as he says, this last month has been a ride. I'm grateful for it. Let's see what the future holds. I think I've run into him on the Sunday night. I've run into him a couple of times. He was on the couch as well at the event, but also I think he was there Sunday night as well, having a good time. Maybe it was Saturday night I went into him, actually. It was an interesting weekend. But as ZooMaa says, to kind of put a bow on the situation, we will be back, #Stallions. Now, there's a couple of options here that Stallions could go for, because there is possibly going to be teams that qualify for the World Championship, for the Challengers Champs, maybe even for the World Cup, that need an organisation to represent. That could be Stallions if they, if ZooMaa wanted to do it. Possibly that could happen. I mean, last year we had FaZe Black, right? So there is an option to do something similar. And of course, FaZe Black, I don't think they're able to be FaZe Black because FaZe were also in the tournament. So they had to be representing the Stallions. So it's possible that the same thing could happen again here. I think ZooMaa's really talking about, next year, what he considers with the rest of the roster. But I also don't think it's impossible that ZooMaa could decide, if he wanted to stay invested for the rest of this Challengers campaign, because the final 2 events, Challengers is going to be a big talking point. Challengers Champs, of course, the winner is the winner, but also the top 3 teams, excluding the Omid team that just won the last event, they will go to the World Cup as well. And the World Cup is massive for Challengers. That is the big stage on which to, show what you can do against the pro teams. That's how it was last year. That's how it's going to be this year, I'd imagine, again. So ZooMaa could, if he wanted to, get involved in that. Of course, the team that he's supported for some time, they didn't quite have enough in the tank in the end, but it's still been a great story. And the fact that, ZooMaa had tons of viewers watching the Challengers LCQ because of this story, I think Shorstin was right to, give ZooMaa lots of praise for that. But in the end, of course, the team just about fell short, and it's obviously been an interesting couple of months because it wasn't long ago, it was the start of May. ZooMaa was absolutely crashing out on the Challengers players, the way they approach things, the changes that need to be made. And look, if ZooMaa can be a positive force on the Challenger side in multiple aspects, I think that's going to be a good thing for the scene. Now, just to kind of close out the story on the Challengers LCQ, LCQ, this is the teams. These are the teams that remain. And notably, Kaysan's team is there in the winners finals. Arguably one of the big favourites for the LCQ. Hamza, Neum, Asim and Trakes, they're there in the winners finals. One of the final 3 teams left. The winners finals also is Gunless, Fame, Million Lux. Now that is a pretty damn good team as well. So, those are one of the other teams. The end game roster, this is pretty impressive. So Major Maniac, Kips, Icons and Seawads. Now they were down 2-0 in their previous match. It was a classic Major Maniac, it's never chalked, pull off the reverse sweep, get to the losers finals. So maybe don't count them out quite yet, but I will say that one of the 2 winner finals teams, certainly the favourites for the tournament as it stands. If you win, whoever wins today, they will go through to the Challengers World Championship in addition to the other teams that already qualified based on points. If I had to guess, I think the Gunless's team looks nice on paper, but I think it's going to be an exciting story whether Kaysan can get some revenge on ZooMaa in some aspect. One of the big problems in Challengers though, and look, I'd love to have a more detailed conversation about this. Probably there's many people better positioned than myself to do this, to be fair, with the league themselves, because as JP says, COD is an M-rated game, but in CS, it's 16 years old. You're allowed to compete in CS, and even in PGL tournaments, you can be 14 to play in the majors. Surely we should have younger players compete with parental consent forms, right? And Ghosty says different devs, different goals. Maybe that's true, and maybe in other countries, the game is rated differently. But it still shouldn't be impossible to do something like this. I think the notable kind of comparison to me is actually Valorant, because in the Pro League in Valorant, the age restriction is 18. And to me, that's perfectly fine. I've not really got an issue with the Pro League restriction being 18 years old as it is in COD. What's the problem in COD is that in Challengers, the age restriction is also 18, which is a joke. Like in Valorant, I think you can be 16, definitely you can be 16, maybe 15, but certainly 16, and you can play Tier 2 Valorant. Pro League, you've got to be 18, but in Tier 2, that's fine. And it's something that COD just has to do, because like, if you're a 14, 15-year-old kid and you're frying in COD or whatever, you won't wait until you're 18 to play Challengers, you'll go play some other game. And I'm sure that's happened a lot in recent years, and quite possibly the next Simp, the next HyDra, whatever, like they've gone to some other game, right? And they're going to dominate that other game rather than playing what they could have played. So not to say they'd be wrong to do it, by the way, right? Like, look, if I had a kid, would I be telling them to play COD or would I be telling them to play Counter-Strike, right? I think I know my answer on that one. So it is what it is, and it's sad to say, but like that's where we are at the moment. So yeah, some changes need to happen. I don't think anyone is really denying that at this point. And just to come out of Brian's stats to close out with here, because this of course is a tryout game. Next year's game is a tryout game as well, and there's some players who have rather dominated tryout tournaments. As Brian says, percentages of top 2s in career tryout tournaments, which is pretty absurd actually, that Simp has made 79% of finals in tournaments on tryout games. Now, how many of those has he won? Probably not as many as he would have liked to, but still, I mean, aBeZy, it's the same story. TP's record is pretty impressive too. Talking back to, BO2, potentially even BO1, there were some of these, finals appearances. Kremp, Clay as well, made 32, they played 32 tournaments in tryout games. Of course, lots of that for Kremp was, somewhat more recent than it was for TP. We're talking BO3, BO4, other games like this. But yeah, it's quite the record, isn't it, really? I mean, Scump played 35 tournaments on tryout games, made 11 finals. aBeZy's made 12 finals out of 16 tryout tournaments played. Like, it's pretty absurd. But obviously, the return is always going to hang above FaZe's heads, whatever way you want to look at it. So, yeah, total wins on trike titles, that looks like this, because, Simp and aBeZy, so, okay, to be fair, Simp's record in finals on trike games is pretty good. He's played 11 finals and won 8 of them. Lots of that, of course, was Cold War, but Scump played 11 finals and won 9 of them. So, okay, maybe not massively dissimilar, but I guess the point is that Scump's finals record in the other titles was maybe a little bit better, but still, Simp and aBeZy on trike games continue to be built different. And in terms of finals appearances rate, and of course in terms of event victories, they did a couple this year, few back in Cold War, few back in Black Ops 4 as well. But still, I think for FaZe, there's another step that they need to take in some regard. But very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.